नमस्ते दोस्तों, वेलकम अगेन टू माय चैनल मंदा एजुकेटर। आई होप आप सब लोग मेरी एजुकेशनल सीरीज जो कि आईसीएसई 2025 स्टूडेंट्स के लिए है, आप लोग फॉलो कर रहे होंगे और देख रहे होंगे। टिल नाउ आई हैव पोस्टेड 3 वीडियोस. Last video was regarding the preparation of mathematics exam which is to be held on 3rd of March. तो उसी के कंटिन्यूएशन में today's video I am going to post which contains the chapter wise precautions, tips, what precautions you should take chapter wise while writing the answer so that you can score full marks in the question which you have attempted. Also, I will give you some general tips for your mathematics examination. What are the important things which you should follow in your examination so that it will help you to score good marks. You know, children, sometimes you think that you have done the solution right, but you have not written the answers as it was expected by the board council. So when you come out of the examination hall, you think that yes, I have done this, I've got the correct answer, you have tallied the answer also, but you may not have written the answer as it was asked properly. What are the important precautions which are scrutinized, which are checked when your paper is corrected? You might have missed some of the small but very important things. An unnecessary half mark, 1 mark you might lose in any particular question, and in total it can make a difference of 4 to 6 marks, 8 marks, sometimes 10 marks. So that's why, to avoid all these mistakes so that you can score full marks in the questions which you have attempted, I am putting this video today. I hope it will help you a lot. So today I am going to start with the chapter wise tips, and in today's video I will cover 3 units: algebra, commercial arithmetic and coordinate geometry. These 3, one of the major portion of your syllabus. Almost half of the question papers, half of the questions are asked from these 3 units. After that I will make another video. In that I will cover geometry, trigonometry, statistics, probability and mensuration. Okay, geometry will include similarities, circles, construction and loci. So I will post these tips, chapter wise tips, in 2 parts. In first part today I am covering 3 units: algebra, commercial arithmetic and coordinate geometry. I will start with first the general tips. What are the precautions you should take while attempting your maths ICSE paper? So some general tips. Some of these things what I am going to tell, आप लोगों को पता होगा, आप लोगों ने सुना होगा, लेकिन होता क्या है कि आप लोग एग्जामिनेशन में इसको ठीक से फॉलो करना कभी कभी भूल जाते हो. तो यू शुड टेक केयर ऑफ दैट. इस पर भूलना नहीं है, सो दैट यू कैन स्कोर maximum what you know from that. Okay, so what are those tips? Number 1, starting with the rough work. Being a maths student, rough work mathematics का जान होता है, प्राण होता है. So when you do the rough work, do it on the same page. On your right side you draw a margin, do the rough work there only, so that you don't have to turn the pages and copy the answer from rough to fair. So everything is there, and if your examiner is correcting the paper, sometimes what happen, they also see your rough work, that have you done your rough work correctly. So while copying the answer, if you have done any silly mistake, can be overlooked. It will be overlooked, I'm not telling, can be overlooked if your rough work is correct. So first and most important advice, do the rough work not at the back of the paper, also in some extra sheet, though you are not allowed only to use any extra sheet. So better do the rough work in the same page in which you are writing, draw a margin on right side, write the title rough work, and do for every question the rough work is beside that only. This was tip number 1. Number 2, when we use graph paper for any question, make sure that you have written all the required informations on the graph also, maybe unique ID, roll number, name, whatever is there, and don't forget to tie it up at the end. Sometime in hurry I have seen that student, they forget to tie their graph paper only. So you must take proper precaution for graph paper. This was tip number 2. General tip, reading time of question paper. If you remember, in one of the earlier video I have already discussed the importance of 15-minute reading time of question paper. So revision you can say, 15 minutes, make a read question paper properly, especially section B. Make a good plan which 4 questions you are going to attempt. So that is one of the important tip. for reading the question paper. I won't talk long on this because I've already discussed this in earlier videos. Next, regarding question number 1, first question, MCQ question. 15 MCQ questions will be asked. See, sometimes what happens in mathematics, you try to just read the question and mental calculation, mentally you try to pick up the answers. Don't do that. Solve the question, get the answer, then tally with the options and choose the answer and write. Don't try to just get the answer mentally. Okay, except if the question is very simple, straightforward, you can get it. Otherwise, most of the MCQ questions nowadays which are asked, it's somewhat like descriptive question only. Unless you solve it properly, you won't be able to choose the correct answer. So solve the question properly, get confident answer. Your answer must tally with one of the options given in the book question paper. So MCQ question, don't just try to give the answer mentally, solve it, be confident. If your answer matches with any of the option, then you copy the option and whatever is mentioned in there, like option A, B, C, D, whichever you are choosing, copy the whole. Next, and one of the most valuable tip, when you are attempting any question, like suppose MCQ question number 1 part 1 or question number section A question number 2, it has subpart 2, question number 2 part 1, part 2, part 3. So when you are attempting any particular question which has got subparts, means the same question, question number 2, 3, 4, 5, any one particular question divided into part 1, part 2, part 3, attempt all the parts at the same go. I mean to say, when you have started question number 2, solve 2 part 1, after that 2 part 2, after that 2 part 3. Suppose while working question number 2, you are doing 2 part 1 you completed, 2 part 2 you have started but something you started missing and suddenly the solution is not coming. So you leave approximate space for that, then do 2 part 3. You should never do this mistake. Listen it carefully. The mistake which I am talking about, like 2 part 1 you are doing on page number 2 of your answer sheet, then you started with question number 3, then you started with question number 4, and again you are coming to 2 part 2 after 3 or 4 pages. This kind of mistakes should be avoided. Once you have started any question, try to complete all the subparts continuously. If you are missing any subpart, leave approximate space for that. Come back after doing all other questions which you are doing and try to complete it then. I hope you have understood this very, very important thing which you must take care. So these were some of the general tips for mathematics. Now you must be waiting for the chapter wise tips. Starting with, as I told, I will take today 3 units: algebra, commercial arithmetic and coordinate geometry. So starting with algebra, first chapter, linear inequation. What are the precautions you must take to score full marks in the question of linear inequation? First thing, you must take care of what in the question x belongs to: real number, whole number, integers or natural number. Very important, you must have the clear concept of these numbers, and when we plot it on number line, you must remember the differences of plotting when x belongs to real number and when x belongs to integer, whole number or natural number. You must know that circle rule, and when you have to shade that circle, only greater or less than or greater equal to less equal to, you must know that precaution. So these are some of, in hurry students they miss these things and unnecessary, they have got the answer correctly but unnecessary they lose half mark, 1 mark. So you should be careful. This was the important tip for linear inequation. Then comes quadratic equation. Tips for quadratic equation. When you are asked a question solving the quadratic equation in which you require to use the square root table, so all of you must be good and quick in using the square root table. Commonly we say logbook is provided, but in that logbook also you should know where is the square root table. You must know how to see the square root of the numbers. Normally in Icse a 2-digit number or maximum 3-digit number. Now most of the time 2-digit number comes to get the square root. Inside the square root you will get most of the cases 2-digit number. So you should be always confident to get the square root from the square root table. Next important thing, approximation. What is approximation? You must have noticed while practicing, nowadays answers are asked up to 2 significant figures, up to 3 significant figures, up to 2 decimals, up to 3 decimals. So you solved everything correctly, you did all the calculations correctly, at last you just left the answer what you got. You did not convert it into proper significant figures. You did not convert it into round off proper decimal. So you should be very careful. If question is asked to write it in any significant figure, any number of decimals, you must convert that. Otherwise, unnecessary half or 1 mark will be deducted. So you should be careful. Next tip for quadratic equation, I told you square root table and approximation. Next, you must remember and understand clearly the conditions of nature of roots. Remember b square minus 4ac, the discriminant of quadratic equation. When it is greater than 0 and perfect square, what kind of root? When it is greater than 0, not a perfect square, what kind of roots? When it is less than 0, negative, imaginary roots. When it is equal to 0, b square minus 4ac is equal to 0, most important one. Then we have equal or coincident roots. Don't get confused with the word coincident. Equal roots, coincident roots. Both are exactly same thing. I am expecting of one question will be asked in this ICSE based on coincident roots. So you must be thorough, clear with these 4 conditions of different types of nature of roots. How do we know? This was another tip. Last but not the least, problems based on quadratic equation. Any quadratic equation, as we all know, we get 2 roots, 2 answers. So in problems based on quadratic equation, in most of the questions, like suppose you are asked to find the speed of a car. Can speed be in negative? Never. So even you get 2 answers, negative and positive, you should write that why we are not taking the negative. So there is no harm in just writing one sentence, speed cannot be negative. So that's why you are picking the positive answer. So this way, if you write the reason, you give the examiner who is correcting your paper the hint that you know the concept well. Okay, so you will score full marks in that particular question. So don't give examiner any room to unnecessarily deduct your marks. I hope you got it. So these were the tips based on quadratic equation. Next comes factorization. In factorization, the important tip which you should remember, if it is asked factorize completely, you must have gone through while practicing one of the very common part of the factorization chapter question, factorize completely. So when you are asked to factorize completely, and if you are using division method, after proving one factor, if you are using the division method, the division gives the answer. Don't just leave that as the second factor. Carefully check if it can also be factorized. In most cases, it is factorized by breaking middle term or sometimes using a square minus b square formula. So you must factorize. Most of the factorizing completely question, you will get 3 factors. One which is asked to prove the factor, the first factor. After division, you will get another factor. Then further factorize it using breaking middle term or any algebra formula into 2 factors. Ratio and proportion. The first and foremost thing, you should be very clear with componendo and dividendo, alternando, invertendo. Most important, componendo and dividendo. Alternando, cross change of position. Invertendo, reverse, reciprocal you can say. Then you must remember the properties of ratio. Okay, proportions. You must be clear with simple proportion and continued proportion. Proving the question in books, while it has been taught you in your respective schools classes, K method commonly we also say sometimes. You must remember the concept of those K method. Okay, and most important one, componendo dividendo. Surely you will get one question on componendo dividendo in your ICSE. So you should be alert with all the properties of proportion. Matrices, easier chapter. First and foremost thing in matrices, you should be clear with what is the order of matrix, meaning how many rows, how many columns the matrix contain. Second important thing, you should be very sure, clear with matrix multiplication, row into column method. Practice in remaining time 3, 4, 5 questions, as many possible practice. Okay, question will be surely asked based on matrix multiplication. Condition for matrix multiplication, the number of columns in first matrix should be equal to the number of rows of the second matrix. And how do we get the order of unknown matrix? If any unknown matrix is there, the rule of matrix multiplication, very important, you should remember that. Okay, so this is about matrices. You should also remember what is identity matrix. Sometimes in question it is written where I is an unit matrix or identity matrix of order 2 into 2. So 1 0 0 1 rule you should remember for identity matrix. Then Suppose matrix A to the power small letter t, something like that, transpose of matrix. You should remember some of the important terms. What is transpose? Row and column, they changes. Row changes into column, order become reverse. Unit matrix, you should remember. Okay. Now, one important thing, whenever unit matrix is multiplied with any matrix, the answer remains the same. Same matrix will be the answer. Now comes progression, AP and GP. Purely formula based chapter. Remember the formulas of AP and GP well, especially the nth term formula, the sum up to nth terms in both AP and GP. In AP, also remember the nth term from the end of the GP. I am expecting question might be asked in this ICSE to find the nth term from the end of the AP when last term will be given. So you should remember the formula and understand it while practicing some questions. So this was about AP and GP. So I hope you have understood all the important tips chapter wise of algebra unit. Now commercial arithmetic. 3 chapters are there, starting with GST. Children, what care you have to take in GST? Always be careful in the two terms, SGST and CGST. Whatever rate is given, you have to divide it into two halves. Like suppose rate of GST is given 12%, question is asking about SGST, so you have to calculate 6%. And 6% will be CGST. You should be clear with how to find the GST paid by any particular seller, his input and output method. Then you must know how to calculate the final price paid by the customer. Customer pays his buying price plus the taxes. So suppose if you are finding CGST and SGST, remember that both the taxes must be added in the final buying price of the customer. So this is about GST. Now comes banking. Remember the formula very well, how to calculate the interest and how to calculate the maturity amount. There are only 4 types of questions that can be asked from recurring deposit. To find the maturity amount, to find the rate, to find the monthly deposit, or to find the time, how many years or how many months the account is held for. So important tip from this, remember the formula well. In all the question, use the method, first find the interest, then find the amount, except when it is asked to find rate. When it is asked to find rate, better use interest formula, amount formula. I mean to say amount is equal to total deposit plus interest. Use that to calculate interest. Then we use interest formula to get the rate. I think that will be easier. Then next, if suppose question is asked to calculate the number of months or time, listen this carefully. Remember, you will get a quadratic equation repeating. If from recurring deposit, you are asked to find the questions finding the number of months or the time for which the account is held, you will get a quadratic equation that will give you the value of n, the number of months, and convert it finally into years for how much time the account is held for. Suppose you got the value of n 24 months. Finally, convert it into years. 24 months means 24 divided by 12, 2 years. So a final answer should be in years. So these are the precautions for banking. Next comes shares and dividends. In shares and dividends, remember all the formulas, formula of investment, formula of dividend, formula of return percent, especially these 3 formulas. Investment formula will help you to get both market value as well as number of shares. Then, what are the precautions? You must remember properly premium and discount. If premium is there, what to be done to get the market value? If discount is there, what to be done to get the market value? You should be very clear and careful with this. Next, questions based on change in income. One company, you have calculated the dividend, then the person sold the shares, that is called sale proceed. Sold the shares, that time you should be careful at what price the person is selling the share. You have to use that particular price to get the sale proceed. Sale proceed is again invested in other company. You will get the number of shares and dividend of that company. Then you will get the difference between the two, whichever is greater dividend minus the smaller dividend. Okay, so change in income question, I'm expecting this time it will be asked. So you should be practicing few questions based on change in income. Be careful on premium and discount. Remember all the formulas. Better investment, sometime you do the mistake, you compare the amount of dividend. No, which is better investment is always calculated from return percent. Suppose two companies, one return percent is 5%, another return percent is 4%. So the 5% one is the better investment. Maybe amount of dividend 4% one is giving more dividend amount. So you should not compare with dividend. Whenever which is better income, better investment, always it is compared by return percent. Bigger return percent, better investment. Now comes coordinate geometry. In coordinate geometry, the first chapter is reflection. Obviously, you will get the graph based question. If scale is given in the graph, you must follow that scale. 2 centimeters is equal to 1 unit or 1 centimeter is equal to 1 unit. If it is not given, you can follow your own scale. Choose it wisely. It should fit in your graph. Always remember, I'm telling the standard graph, 2 centimeter boxes, I hope everyone know. So when you see the graph, the vertical axis, it contains 12 boxes and the horizontal axis, it contains 10 boxes. So when you mark x-axis, you have 2 centimeter boxes till 10 options. So if your numbers are up to 10, you can take 2 centimeters equal to 1 unit. If numbers are more than 10, better you take 1 centimeter as 1 unit. Same goes for y-axis also. Up to 12 numbers, you take 2 centimeters equal to 1 unit. More than 12, if it is there, you take 1 centimeter as 1 unit. Then you must understand and remember the concept of invariant points. Okay. Then you must remember any point on x-axis, y coordinate will be 0, x comma 0. Any point on y-axis, x coordinate will be 0, 0 comma y. Origin, both x and y 0. Good, 0 comma 0. Then after completing the figures, you must have noticed while practicing, you are asked to name the geometrical figure formed. So you must count if suppose you are getting any particular shape, like while practicing star shaped, fist shaped, this kind of arrow shaped, you can write arrow shaped polygon, fist shaped polygon like this. If you are not able to guess the figure clearly, count all the sides, write that much sided polygon. Like suppose a figure you are getting which you are not sure that what is the particular name. Don't worry about name. Count the number of sides, suppose 7 sides. So write 7 sided polygon, 6 sided polygon, like this. You can write the answer. Or hexagon, pentagon, trapezium, square, parallelogram. This way you can write the particular name. Always helpful to remember some of the formulas of area and perimeter for common figures like triangle, trapezium, rhombus, rectangle and square. So this was about reflection. Write the scale properly. Mark the numbers. Better to do with pencil on graph paper. And don't forget to mention your important informations on the graph sheet at the top, your unique ID and all, which I have already told at the start of the video. Section, midpoint and centroid formula chapter. Remember the formulas very well. From section formula, ratio can be asked, ratio will be given, coordinate can be asked. Both way you should practice the problems. Midpoint formula, clearly midpoint, equally divided, bisector, this kind of word will be there. Question can be asked diagram based, without diagram based. Centroid formula, you all know. If all 3 coordinates, corners coordinates of triangle is given, how to get the centroid. So formula based chapter, remember the formulas very well. In section formula and midpoint formula, one more important thing which I am expecting that this year it can be asked, question based on points of trisection. When a line is divided by 2 points into 3 parts, then these 2 points are called points of trisection. So how to get the coordinates? By using either the ratio 1:2 and then for the second point 2:1, you can find the coordinates of the 2 points. So this also you should remember in the chapter section and midpoint formula. Comes the equation of straight line. In equation of straight line, first of all, you must understand and remember y is equal to mx plus c, the standard form of equation of line. In this y is equal to mx plus c, m is slope, c is y-intercept. You should know well what is x-intercept and what is y-intercept. Comes slope or gradient, denoted by small letter m. You must know all the methods of finding the slope, like if angle made by the line with x-axis, theta, inclination is given, m is equal to tan theta, slope is equal to tan theta. When it will be positive and when it will be negative, that also you should remember. Next, when 2 points are given, coordinates of 2 points x1, y1, x2, y2 is given, how to get slope? M is equal to y2 minus y1 by x2 minus x1. If equation of line is given, how to get the slope? by converting the equation into y is equal to mx plus c form. Whatever is the coefficient of x or the number attached with x, that is the slope. You also must know what is the relation between slope of two parallel lines. If two lines are parallel, m1 is equal to m2. Their slopes are equal. But the two lines are perpendicular, m1 into m2 is minus 1. Any line which is parallel to x-axis, since x-axis slope is 0, so any line parallel to x-axis, its slope will also be 0. Slope of y-axis is perpendicular, so any line parallel to y-axis, its slope will also be infinity. Then you should also know what is the how to get the equation of line. Both ways, if 2 points are given, get the slope and 1 point and get the equation. If slope and y-intercept is given, then how to get the equation? Use the form y is equal to mx plus c. Then if two lines are intersecting each other, their equations are given. How to get the coordinates of the point of intersection? Take the equation of the two lines, simultaneously solve them, you will get the value of x and y. These were the important things related to equations of line. Here are the 3 units and some general tips I have given in this video. In next video, immediately after that, next day I will post another video. I will cover the remaining topics, which are geometry, including similarity, circle and construction, mensuration, trigonometry, including height and distance, statistics and probability. So till then, I post the new video. Follow the tips. If you have any query, any question, comment it. I will give the answer through comment, or if I find that the comment require a general video, I will try to make the video. Before leaving the video, don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Press the bell icon so that you will get the notification first for any upcoming new video. In continuation in maths, after maths examination, I will continue to post the videos for the subject of physics as well as chemistry, and after that some other useful videos. How do you decide that which stream you should take in class 11? So keep waiting for these videos. Till then,